Six Flags Magic Mountain, one of the biggest amusement parks in the world, with the current #1 when it comes to total coaster count. This park needs no introduction in the coaster world, so I am now going to give it one. This video is going to be long enough as it is, so let's skip any boring backstory and get into the park itself. But before we really start, I just want to give a huge thank you and shout out to Airtime Thrills. All of the off-ride footage you see in this video came from his second channel. This video would have been impossible to make without him, so thank you so much. If you somehow managed to find this video without already knowing who he is, first of all, how did you do that? But seriously, go check him out. He makes more content and better content than I ever will. Also, any POV footage you see in this video came from X Coaster. They have tons of POV videos for a bunch of different coasters on their channel, so take a look if you're interested. Now, on with the video. Before I talk about any of the rides at Magic Mountain, I want to touch on theming for a second. Six Flags Magic Mountain is not a park that puts a ton of effort into theming. Don't get me wrong, there is some, but it's obvious that theming isn't Magic Mountain's biggest concern. That being said, there are a few areas in the park that stand out. Scream Pond District is one that comes to mind. The idea of having a steampunk themed area in a park is so fun. I'm surprised more parks don't have one. Not you, Fiesta Texas, you're perfect, baby, I love you. You also have the western old-timey sections over on the left side of the park, which every theme park should have. If you don't have an old-timey western part in your park, what are you even doing? Again, not you, Fiesta Texas, don't change a thing, sweetheart, love you, mwah! And of course we have Samurai Point, the highest point in all of Magic Mountain. It's honestly really cool up there with some nice Japanese theming. Unfortunately, it doesn't give a great view of the park due to all the trees, and with Superman seemingly down indefinitely, the only thing up there is Ninja, which is a real shame. It would be nice if there were more reasons to go up there. Regardless, despite a few areas looking nice, it really isn't enough for me to call Magic Mountain a theme park, which forces me to bring up the age-old question of, who cares? Sorry, I know theming is really important to some people, and I personally love theming and everything it can add to an experience, but different parks have different focuses, not to mention different budgets, and as long as a park excels at its chosen niche, then I'm happy. And Magic Mountain has clearly chosen to focus on its coasters above all else. Speaking of coasters, let's talk about Magic Mountain's frankly insane lineup. Say what you want about this park, but they do have a very strong collection of roller coasters. And not much else. This is not a park that has a ton of flat rides. They do have a pretty wild log ride, which I greatly appreciate, and a Justice League dark ride, but outside of the kid areas, you aren't gonna find very many flat rides, which, once again, who cares? There is not a whole lot of diversity when it comes to flat rides in general. I personally hardly ever ride flat rides anymore, unless a park has a unique one, which Magic Mountain does not. Unless you count the Magic Mover, I guess. Let's be real here. This channel is called Rambling About Coasters, not Rambling About Flat Rides. In fact, why am I even talking about all this other stuff? I've been talking for ages, and I haven't even talked about the actual roller coasters yet. Forget the flat rides, let's get into the good stuff. I actually really love dark rides too, and Magic Mountain's Justice League ride is one of the better ones, but it's not interesting enough to actually talk about, so whatever, let's just go. So, without further ado, I will now proceed to give my complete, exhaustive opinion on every single coaster at Six Flags Magic Mountain, because I want to talk about them, and my beloved sister starts to zone out whenever I talk about coasters for more than 5 minutes, so I'll just scream into the void instead. Now, one of my fatal character flaws is that I cannot, for the life of me, rank the roller coasters I have ridden. I cannot do it. I look at other coaster enthusiasts that have every single coaster they've ever ridden in one ranked list, and it blows my mind. Every single coaster has different strengths and weaknesses. I can like 2 different coasters for completely different reasons. Who's to say which one deserves to be ranked over another when they're both equally good in different ways? Of course, I realize that this is where the personal preference part comes in, but I just cannot make that distinction for myself. So when it comes to the coasters of Magic Mountain, instead of ranking them 1 through 19, or 20 if you want to believe that Superman is coming back, I instead split them into 5 groups of gradually decreasing quality. The first group of coasters consists of the world-class, absolutely amazing, anyone could be number one type coasters. In my very humble and also completely correct opinion, these coasters are Full Throttle, Tatsu, Wonder Woman, Twisted Colossus, and, of course, X2. After this group of elite coasters, we have the really good ones. These coasters are all fantastic rides, but they're a little less mind-blowing than the top category. These are your family coasters and your less extreme thrill coasters. The coasters in this category are West Coast Racers, Apocalypse, The New Revolution, Riddler's Revenge, and Gold Rusher. The next group of coasters are still good, but they're less good. They're the coasters that border on the edge of mid, and I personally don't love quite as much. These coasters are Goliath, Batman, and Ninja. The next category is the kiddie coasters. I am not going to talk about them, because who cares? You want my opinion about the kiddie coasters? Okay, here we go. You can't ride one of them, because it's only for kids. 2 others are just typical kiddie coasters, and the last one is actually pretty good. It verges on the edge of being an actual family coaster. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's still not that exciting. Oh, and I guess we can toss Superman into this category as well. I've never ridden it, and at this point, I doubt I ever will. I did like 3 seconds of research trying to figure out what was up with it, and I don't know. CoasterCount.com says it's defunct, the Magic Mountain website says it's down for refurbishment, RCBD says it's sitting but not operating, so who knows? Going by how the new Six Flags chain has been operating, I wouldn't count on it ever opening again, but hey, crazier things have happened. Coming back from that tangent, the final category is coasters that I actively dislike. There are only 2 coasters in this category, Scream and Viper, which is a pretty good ratio of coasters I like to coasters I dislike, so good job, Magic Mountain. So, here we are, my breakdown of the coasters at Magic Mountain. But if you thought that this was as far as I was going to take this, then you clearly did not read the name of this channel very carefully. Let's do this. Full Throttle is a very weird ride. Like, just looking at it, it looks weird. It is the only coaster in the world where the train goes on both sides of the track, and the fact that they chose to have the double track go over that massive loop is hilarious and awesome. That final drop off the loop feels very weird. It's at a weird angle, and I'm pretty sure the brakes start partway up the drop, which all adds up to a very unique feeling. Another strange thing about Full Throttle is that even though it is an objectively very short ride, it doesn't feel short when you're on it. When you hit that final brake run, it feels very satisfying, not like you were shortchanged at all. I don't know if I'm making any sense. This thing is weird. I do love that launch though. It's so powerful, and yet it always feels as though you just barely make it through the loop. You get some great hang time on this thing, and it's fun to watch that initial launch from the sidelines. You can see how sometimes the train gets through the loop no issues, while other times it crawls through so slowly, you almost think the train won't make it. It's very fun and gives a bit of variety to the ride, which is always appreciated. Tatsu is a lovely flying coaster. It really takes advantage of the fact that it's up on the hill. You are so high up that it can be a little scary, but the views you get are more than worth it. Of course, none of that is why I love Tatsu. This coaster has one of the most demented pretzel loops on the freaking planet. I love pretzel loops. It is such a unique feeling that you can only really get on flying coasters, and the one on Tatsu is massive. You glide through this course until you hit that glorious pretzel loop, which then proceeds to rip your head off. I love it, and every time I see the loop coming, I just about vibrate out of my skin in excitement. It's awesome. Tatsu is awesome. Great flying coaster. No notes. Wonder Woman is the coaster that I have ridden the most at Magic Mountain. It's one of the bigger Raptors, which I know can be pretty controversial. It is true that the larger Raptors are less whippy than the small ones, but the small ones can be a bit much for some people. Not me. I love the little ones, but I also love the big ones. Riding Wonder Woman, I'm always surprised by just how long it is. It seems to just keep going. I do think it makes the ride suffer a bit in certain parts. There are definitely elements that seem like they should have more airtime or force to them, which, is a shame. but I still love it. I always have a good time on Wonder Woman. When I first started to ride Raptors, I wasn't a huge fan, but the model has definitely grown on me over time, and now I love them. Wonder Woman, don't listen to the haters. I'll always love you. Let's talk about the other RMC in the park. Twisted Colossus is RMC's only racing coaster. Massive air quotes around racing there, because this thing does not race. I have never gotten a ride where the trains were actually racing, which sucks. I've heard this thing was way better back when it would race every time. But hey, on the bright side, I don't have those better experiences to compare to the ones that I've had, so it honestly doesn't bother me that much. From my perspective, Twisted Colossus is a fun, long ride with lots of great classic RMC moments. I especially love that first drop where you shoot down a piece of straight track before going over that little speed hill really fast. It's so fun, and I'm glad you get to do it twice. I also really like the stall. Is it the best stall in the world? I don't know. I haven't experienced every stall in the world. I just know that I like it, which is how I feel about Twisted Colossus in general. Is it the best RMC in the world? Who cares? I like it. And finally, X2. X2 is an insane coaster that was something of a holy grail for me. It wasn't until my third trip to Magic Mountain that I was finally able to get on it, and every delay just boated up even more in my mind. X2 was actually the only coaster in the entire world that I was still afraid of, and it wasn't until this last Christmas that I was finally able to get on it. And now, I am invincible. I love X2. That first drop, amazing. I've already expressed my love for pretzel loops earlier in this video, and the first drop on X2 gives a very similar feeling. Not the same, but similar. That drop alone makes X2 a world-class coaster. The rest of the ride isn't as crazy. You honestly do fewer 360-degree flips than I would have expected, but then again, with all the other inversions on top of the flipping train cards, it can be hard to tell when you're actually flipping. Overall, the entire thing is a wild ride that I cannot recommend enough. It can beat you up a bit, but as someone who, very stupidly, rode this thing on an outside wing in the last row, it really isn't that bad. If you're sensitive, just ride on an inside seat towards the front, and you'll be good. Now that we've gone through the best coasters in the park, let's drop down a category and hit up our ever-important supporting coasters. West Coast Racers is a ride that I should like more. Don't get me wrong, I do like it. I like it a lot. It's awesome that it's a dueling coaster that actually duels every single time. I love the low to the ground nature of it and all of the fun inversions. It's great that you get to ride both sides with one ride. This is a very good coaster. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the launch. It's just so weak. I like my launches with more kick than that, but hey, it's a family coaster, I get it. Not every launch can rip your face off. I don't know, I don't know what it is about West Coast Racers that keeps me from fully loving it. But at the end of the day, it just doesn't capture my heart. Nothing wrong with the coaster, it's great at what it does, and I enjoy every single ride on it. But when a park has 19 coasters, some are going to get a little less love, and for me, that coaster is West Coast Racers. Apocalypse is a coaster that I last rode several years ago, and I don't really remember it. sorry, I just didn't get a chance to ride it the last 2 times I went, and I can't remember it. I do think I liked it. It's a GCI. I'm sure it's great. I like the theme of trying to escape from the apocalypse. The queue with all the flashing red lights is fun. But yeah, that's all I got. Look, Magic Mountain has so many coasters, okay? I don't have time to talk about the ones I don't have much of an opinion on. Alright, let's just move on. The New Revolution. Are you ready for my deep, dark secret about the New Revolution? I like it more than West Coast Racers. Yeah, that's right, I said it. I know West Coast Racers is longer and smoother and has more elements and a racing element, but Gosh dang it, I love Revolution. I have a real soft spot for Schwarzkopfs. I've never ridden one I don't like, and Revolution is a great Schwarzkopf. It's a terrain coaster that goes through the trees and that circular loop. They literally do not make loops like that anymore. I don't know what it is about Revolution that makes me love it so much. I just do. It's also a really great night ride if you ever have a chance. The one downside is that every single time I've been to Magic Mountain, they have been running Revolution with one train, so the line can move very slowly. So, just make sure that you're prepared for that when you come to the park. Riddler's Revenge is a stand-up coaster, which should be enough for me to dislike it, but I don't know. I actually like Riddler's Revenge. Yeah, it does make my legs hurt. Every stand-up coaster makes my legs hurt. Something about the pressure it puts on them. But besides that, this is a pretty smooth for a B&M with the bulky over-the-shoulder restraints. This thing does not give me headbanging at all. And yeah, the layout is pretty similar to every other B&M floorless or stand-up coaster, but Riddler's Revenge is just so fast. I don't know what it is, but every time I've ridden this thing, it has been booking it. This is probably my favorite stand-up coaster, which isn't saying a lot, but is still pretty cool. Jumping over to good old Gold Rusher. This is Magic Mountain's mine train, which of course means I like it. You would have to be some kind of heartless psychopath to not enjoy a mine train, and this is a pretty good one. It isn't the most crazy mine train in existence, but it is yet another terrain coaster. Magic Mountain really takes advantage of that mountain. For the most part, it is a nice relaxing trip through the trees, which means it's also a great night ride, and the final helix is an exciting way to end the ride. Not my favorite mine train, but not my least favorite either. Jumping down categories once again, we come to Goliath. Goliath is a coaster that I have only ever ridden once, but I have ridden its sister coaster, Titan, at Six Flags Over Texas many times, so I think I'm pretty qualified to talk about it. The only difference between Titan and Goliath is that Goliath is missing that ascending helix before the brake run, making it the weaker coaster, but it's still good fun. I know the Giovanola coasters get a bad rap in the coaster community, but hey, I say they aren't all that bad. The first drop is crazy, and the airtime hill after the turnaround gives tons of floater airtime. And yeah, the brake run totally kills all momentum and speed going into the second half, but considering how much this ride already tears my face off, I'm not sure I would want to go into it faster. And hey, if the brake run really bums you out that much, try sitting in the front, especially on the left hand side. The way you get dangled over the ground as the train slowly moves forward is very fun. Overall, I think this coaster is better than its reputation, but at the same time, I'm not sticking my neck out for Goliath of all coasters. It's fun. Also, one last thing. Goliath? Terrible name. That sign? Incredible. Ninja is an aero suspended coaster, which is already pretty cool. There aren't very many of those left, so I am glad to get to experience it. It does bother me that it has the over the shoulder restraints. Like, come on, those cars are so deep and you really don't swing that much. Do you really need those big restraints? Plus, this is another one where they only ever seem to run one train, so the line can be so slow. Once you get past all that though, it's a charming enough ride. The swinging sensation is neat and the interaction with the log ride is fun, but I'm not super fond of this one. I'm glad it exists, and that's about it. So, that is all of the rides that I actually like in this park. We'll quickly go over the ones I dislike and then wrap things up. Oh, I almost forgot. This park also has the Batman clone if you're into that kind of thing. Okay, look. I have a personal grudge against the Batman clones that has nothing to do with the quality of the rides themselves. The Batman clones are very good, very intense coasters, and I think they are one of the best rides to have ever been cloned all over the place. Coaster enthusiasts tend to look down on clones because it's always a bit of a shame when you don't get to a new experience in a new park, but looking at it from a normal person's perspective, clones are actually amazing. I mean, come on, most people do not go out of their way to travel to a bunch of different amusement parks. Most people will go to maybe a couple parks over the course of their lives, so clones allow people to experience a great coaster that they wouldn't have been able to otherwise. At least they do when the clone coaster is actually good. SLCs. Bleh. So the fact that there are so many Batman clones is really a good thing when you think about it. Unless you're me, screw these stupid coasters. Viper! We're just going from strength to strength here. Viper is an air looper. Moving on to Scream now. Okay, no. I'll talk about Viper. On paper, Viper is a good ride. It's tall, it's got 7 inversions, including one that was the highest inversion in the world when it opened, but it hurts, man. It makes my head hurt. If you happen to be tall enough that your head sticks out above the restraints, or you're just made of sterner stuff, then it's a good ride that hardly ever has a line. If not though, it's just not worth it. Get the credit and move on. Scream's biggest sin, in my opinion, is that it's boring. Every B&M Floorless is boring. They are all the same. They have the little pre-drop before the main one, and then a couple inversions, and then you finish with those stupid interlocking corkscrews which smack your head against their stupid over-the-shoulder restraints. They rattle, they bang, and they're boring. If you've ridden one, you've ridden them all, and I am just so over it. What is my life? How have I gotten to the point where I can call a coaster that is 150 feet tall and has 7 inversions boring? See, this is why I always tell people they can't ask me if a roller coaster is scary. Clearly, I am not a reliable source of information when it comes to things like this. So yeah, I don't know if disliking B&M Floorless coasters is a hot take or anything, but that's just how I feel. I don't like them, and I especially don't like Scream. Moving on. We have now finished my in-depth, excruciatingly detailed breakdown of every single coaster at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Turns out, I had quite a bit to say. Who would have guessed? Now that we've gotten through the most important part of this video, let's finish up with some final pros and cons for the park as a whole. Looking at Magic Mountain as a whole can be a little difficult. With its stellar lineup of coasters, it really should be a world-class amusement park. And it is, but there are a few things to be aware of. Magic Mountain can get very busy, with practically all the lines in the park hitting multi-hour waits. If you only have one day in the park, prepare to miss credits. There is no way you're getting them all. You also need to be prepared to walk. They are not kidding when they call it Magic Mountain. There is a lot of elevation change throughout this park, and it can be difficult to handle, especially if you are making the hike to Ninja. But hey, we wouldn't have all those fun terrain coasters without the mountain, so I'd say it's worth it in the end. In fact, I do think the mountain itself is one of the best things the Magic Mountain has going for it. I honestly believe Magic Mountain has one of the prettiest central plazas of any Six Flags park. The waterfall down the hill, and in the fountain with Tatsu and New Revolution in the background, it's beautiful. In fact, there are multiple areas in the park where rides overlap in really fun ways. I love just sitting and watching the rides going simultaneously. It's delightful. But even with those upsides, Magic Mountain is just kind of a stressful park. There's tons to do, which can be a pro, but when combined with typical crowd levels and the physically difficult aspect of walking around the park, it can be a bit much. If this is your home park and you can afford to just hang out and only ride shorter lines, or if you already have your credits and are willing to just take it slow, then Magic Mountain can be a wonderful experience. But if you only have one day, then maybe resign yourself to buying a fast pass. With all that being said, what do I personally think of Magic Mountain? It's hard to say. I have had very good days at Magic Mountain, and I have had very bad days. In a way, Magic Mountain feels like a park that is less than the sum of its parts. It has awesome coasters, beautiful scenery, everything a park should need, and yet, I can't quite find myself loving it the way I love other parks. Magic Mountain is in my top 5 Six Flags parks. but it isn't in my top 3. And I think that says something. Then again, my top 3 is objectively wrong, and anyone who knows anything about amusement parks would absolutely tear me apart over them, so clearly I'm an idiot who doesn't know what they're talking about. And yeah, I know all the Cedar Fair parks are technically Six Flags parks now too, okay, I know, but I still separate them in my head, alright? There have not been enough changes to the parks to make them feel unified yet, so for now at least, I am still going to conceptualize the Cedar Fair parks as their own things, okay? Okay. So, there it is, my review of Six Flags Magic Mountain, my first video I have ever made. Why did I choose to make my very first video be on the park with the most roller coasters in the world, therefore leading to a much longer and more difficult video to make instead of starting with a smaller park to ease myself into this? Hubris and stupidity. For real though, I had a lot of fun doing this. My dad has been saying for years that I should start a YouTube channel, but I always said no for 2 reasons. A, I don't have a strong enough work ethic to be a YouTuber, and B, I don't think I have anything that interesting or unique to say when it comes to roller coasters or amusement parks. Both of these things are still true, but at the end of the day, it is still fun to put all my thoughts together in one place and put it out there for the world to see. I'm not expecting much from this channel, but if even a few people enjoy these videos, I'll be happy. So, brace yourselves for more rambling about coasters that no one cares about, because I can, and will, talk about them for hours. Catch you next time. Bye!